electronics. It's amazing. Okay, so tonight we are talking about the color yellow, and so thankful for editing because we get to edit the first part of this out, and that's awesome. Okay, so I have Catherine with me. Catherine wrote my first book with me called Dreams, A Window into Your Destiny. All right, Catherine, you ready? So we are going to talk about the color yellow, negative and positive colors of yellow. What happens when you see yellow in a dream? So we found a dream on our website. Oh, and this is eyes2see.org, so be sure to go and sign up for your free online dream journal. Put those dreams in there, and I promise you that you will start dreaming. So go ahead and do that, and if you have trouble with a dream, go ahead and submit it. We've got an amazing team that will be there to help interpret your dream and communicate with you. We are high touch, high tech. So if you have any questions, you can contact us on there. We'll be more than happy to answer them. Or you can ask us any question on eyes2see.org, and we will make a video training just for you. All right, so we picked up the dream on yellow. And you want to tell me the dream, Catherine?
Yes. Last night, I dreamt that I was picking ears of corn in this beautiful cornfield. The corn was so yellow and pretty, and the field was so green and fresh.
I don't get to use my thing. Couldn't we find a longer one? No, we can't. Okay, we'll get a long one next time. Yellow corn. So we know that corn is typically yellow, but here's the deal. One of the things that we talk about in dream symbols, and especially with colors, is that you want to make sure that the color is weighted before you go try to interpret it, right? So sometimes we use, when we are relaying a dream, we can say, like we had a dream earlier where it said this yellow baby chick. Well, baby chicks are yellow, right? That's a well-known fact. So there's not really a weightedness about that dream symbol or that color. And so we don't want to get too crazy with our symbols. What we want to look for are the weighted elements in a dream. And so in this instance, we see that the dreamer says it's so yellow and so green. So what is she doing? The dreamer is weighting those colors for us, and that's how we know that that color is so important that if you took that color out, it would change the whole meaning of the dream, right? So that is one of the principles that you want to pay attention to in dream interpretation. Is you don't want to just get crazy with your color symbols, because when you do that, it disanchors you and you go off into crazy land, and all of a sudden you're over here when you should be over here, because dreams are non-linear and they're very hard to kind of anchor down. I call it anchoring down tent pegs. This peg will come up and you got to go anchor it down, and this peg will come up and you got to anchor it down, right? So you want to anchor that dream down, and a lot of times how we anchor that dream down is we ask the dreamer, where are you? And in this case, the dreamer is in a cornfield. Now, we always do why this and not that, right? So why a cornfield and not a wheat field? And so in this case, she says it's so yellow, right? And it's so green. Well, yellow, we're not going to talk about the green, but we'll talk about the green in the next video. But yellow, in a positive aspect, can be related to as a gift. Yellow can also correlate with the color gold, and so it can mean glory. It can be a gift. It can also represent favor. Gold can represent favor. So anytime you see yellow, and again, you want to look at the different types of yellow, right? Is it a very soft pastel yellow? Is it a bright yellow? Or is it a golden yellow? So those things matter. And in this case, we see, she says it was so yellow, meaning it was vibrant. When I see so in a dream, I kind of take that to mean that the dreamer is saying it's just vibrant, and she really took notice. But why is she in a field? Well, fields represent harvest, right? Fields represent when you are in a field of something growing, it's talking about harvest time. What does that mean, Amy? What does harvest time mean, right? Well, we correlate harvest meaning that in your life it is ripe for action, right? And so when we say harvest, we say that in which you've sowed into, that in which you've labored for, that in which you've toiled the field for, right? You've toiled, you've labored, you've done the work that is necessary. And when we dream we're in a field, it's like one of those moments like the la, we've made it to the other side, right? And so why do we dream about fields? Because they are a promise. They're a promise because when life gets hard and life gets rough and you've put everything that you have into it, we need those moments where we can grab onto hope, where we can grab onto an anchor and say, I've got a promise. And that's why God gives us these harvest field dreams, so that we can incubate that dream in our heart. We can meditate on that dream in our heart. So as you go to bed at night, you take this dream, this harvest dream, and you hold it and you meditate on it, right? And that is the hope that everything that you have put in to this situation that you have, maybe it's your marriage, maybe it's finances, maybe it's a business that you've tried to start so you can get out of your employee business. Maybe, maybe it's your kids, your education. It's that in which you've toiled and labored for, and now it's harvest time. You are ready to see the fruit of your harvest. And that's what I would tell the dreamer. And in this case, the dreamer is saying corn versus wheat. So wheat also represents harvest, but corn is very special. Corn represents prosperity. Corn can also represent prosperity in the marketplace, maybe a financial breakthrough that she's been waiting for. Yellow is a gift. This is a gift from God. This is unto the glory of God, that God's going to see this come through. That is why the corn, she sees the vibrant color of yellow. She also sees green, which is life, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in the next video. But corn specifically, and ask yourself, why this and not that? Why a cornfield and not a wheat field? Why a cornfield and not an apple orchard? Why a cornfield? That's what we call compare and contrast, and that helps you unlock that dream, right? It helps you think, okay, this is an important symbol, and it unlocks it when you begin to compare it to another symbol. So corn, prosperity, financial breakthrough, and she's just gazing out on this field because that is the hope and that's the promise she has. And is there anything else on that dream that she had said it was just that she looked out upon the field?
Yeah, mentions the corn so yellow and pretty and the field is so green and fresh.
So I think it really has to do with her engaging. And again, we talked about the fruit of the Spirit in the dreams. We look for places that produce peace, love, joy, hope, and kindness, and meekness, and gentleness, and patience. And so in this case, we can almost feel, and what I love about dreams is when you're interpreting dreams, you can almost step into that dream. You can actually feel the dream as the dreamer is telling you the dream, or as it's being read to you. And when somebody's telling you a dream, or when you're listening to maybe your children's dream, or your spouse's dream, or your best friend's dream, or maybe you're at work and someone's telling you a dream, and you want to step into that dream with them. You want to feel the dream with them. And that's where that deep revelation is, right? And so in this case, we can feel just the wonderment, right? And so take that dream, meditate in your heart. That dream is a promise for you to meditate on and hold dear, because as times get hard, we're going to need that anchor. And God is all about giving us anchors. We see that in the book of Joseph. The story of Joseph. We see that God told him that that his family was going to bow down to him, that he was going to be positioned, right, where he shouldn't have been positioned. And he was excited. And then what happened? Joseph's whole life spun out of control, right? He had to go through heart tests, because what God really had in mind for Joseph wasn't that his family would bow down. It would be that a whole nation would bow down. So our limited thinking about what God has for us, God has much bigger plans for your life, much bigger. But you got to detach yourself from the outcome. Hold on to the promise and meditate on the promise that it had to do not with his family bowing down, but the position that God had for Joseph, right? And God has a position and a message for you. And he wants you to hold on. Before times get hard, God always warns us with divine warning, divine strategy, divine wisdom before a situation happens. We know through Scripture that he always tells the prophet before things happen. We're all prophets. We live in the new covenant, and all of us are prophetic. We all hear from God. We all have the ability to interpret dreams because we have the Spirit of God in us. All right, I'm Amy Coelho, and we did not talk about negative symbols. See? She was going to catch me on that one. And she was going to turn it off on you guys. So when we see yellow in a negative connotation, we see that yellow can mean yellow belly, right? Fear. It can bring on maybe being a coward, maybe cowering down to something, timidity, fear, and we get that from being yellow bellied, right? Just like blue can represent, the negative connotation for blue can represent depression or just having the blues, right? And so we listen to those things because that God's going to speak to us in our cultural language and our colloquialism, right? All right, I think that's enough on yellow. Wait,
Do the other dream?
oh, you know what? We are not going away. And I know you're excited. Okay, so yes, let's do another one. Can I use this now?
If you want to.
Okay, we're going to use this now.
So I dreamed that I was going to the doctor. A regular medical doctor was very expensive, and a veterans doctor was a lot cheaper, so I chose him. He showed me 2 needle ends, and I had to choose, so I picked the smaller needle. The needle was silver and looked like a knitting needle in size. The needle was very small on one end. He took the needle and shoved it into the side of my left knee. Before I could ask him what he was doing, he shoved another needle, very similar to the other one, in the top of my knee. He told me he was draining my knee. I told him my knee doesn't even hurt. Then I told him since he had the needles in my knee, he should go ahead and drain it. He had a syringe attached to a tube, and he started to pull a yellow liquid from my knee. End of dream. Although they noted that they hate needles normally, but felt no pain.
That's very key. And I love, that's a good point. Because a lot of times in dream interpretation, we want to pay attention to the nuances of the dreamer. And in this case, she's telling you things outside of the dream, and you need to pay attention to those because those are keys and can unlock word of knowledge, right? And we can enter into a dream for interpretation and then have that unlock on us, right? We can unlock that word of knowledge about the person, about the situation. So in this case, she's seeing the doctor. What does a doctor represent? Well, doctors can represent those that heal, right? And our healer is God. And so in this case, she's going to the doctor. She's seeking out the doctor. And she even says, or he says, I don't know, he said, the dreamer says that, what did he say about the veterans?
It was cheaper.
And so he wanted to talk about the Veterans Hospital. Well, why did he mention veteran? Because a veteran in a dream symbol reflects someone who is war-torn. War-torn is those who've been in battle. You haven't seen a reprieve. It's the ones that have gone before us. So we're talking about somebody who has been in the war, right? And when we are in war or we are under a lot of warfare or just, what's another word for it? You know, life, pressures of life unraveling, right? It's the life you didn't choose. And so when those things happen, we just get exhausted, we get worn-torn, and we have to see the doctor, the one that heals our heart, right? And in this case, the doctor wants to put a needle in her knee. Well, what do knees represent? Knees can reflect the need to pray. We get on our knees. That's an understanding that, in fact, many of us in desperate times, we have all fallen to our knees. We get on our knees. It's that sign of absolute surrender, right? And so in this case, he needs to take some liquid out of the knee, but interestingly enough, that he says left knee, right? So our right are the things that God has given us power for, and the left are things that we do in the natural that we need help with. It's our natural skill set. And so in this case, he's saying that he's pulling some infection. Yellow can represent infection, right? Yellow can also represent fear, like I had said earlier. Fear, cowardness, timidity. And in this case, I think this dream really has to do with someone who's worn-torn, someone who has seen the battle, someone who has been in it and needs a reprieve. And God's saying, hey, come to me in this dream, saying, let me beckon you to my heart, right? Come to me and I will remove the infection, right? The fear that you are experiencing, so that when you pray, there's not going to be fear that I'm not going to come through. What happens when we are in war-torn situations, desperate situations, times where we feel like God has abandoned us, or we're praying to a brass ceiling. And in this is a promise, this is a strategy, this is a dream that God's saying, hey, come to me, because I'm going to take care of that. I'm going to meet you where you need to be. I'm going to meet you there. And as I'm going to take care of this fear that you have, that in prayer I won't meet you. And the dream is confirmation that I'm here. I'm here and I see what you've gone through. And so I would tell the dreamer, meditate on that. Meditate on the fact that your God just told you that, yes, he sees everything that you've gone through. Yes, God sees this, but it was for the benefit of your own heart. The things that we go through are a heart test for the next level. But we can't get to that next level if we're stuck in fear. Just like the story of Joseph. If Joseph was stuck in bitterness and betrayal over being lied about by the Pharaoh's wife, then he would never have advanced to that positioning of ruling and reigning. But see, Joseph had to go through that heart test, being sold off by his brothers, being imprisoned. Can you imagine? All these years later, Joseph probably didn't even think about that dream he had, as a boy with his brothers. But God never forgot the promise. And how we move forward in life is we don't get stuck in bitterness and betrayal. And the story of Joseph, I encourage you guys, if you feel like your dreams have been lost, feeling like God made you a promise and it just your whole life turned upside down, divine chaos always comes before divine order. But we don't get the divine order if we get stuck and entrapped in bitterness and betrayal and fear. And God's saying, I'm going to remove the fear, and I'm going to remove it so that when you pray, you know I will show up. I think that's it. Yeah? All right. And yes, they said it's okay to go now. So I will see you on the next video where we will be talking about the color green. I'm Amy Coelho, and this is eyestosee.org.